Coming up next on the Jeff Crilley Show, for more than 2 decades, she's been leading a very successful real estate recruiting company, but it's not been without adversity. Her incredible journey just ahead.
Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show.
Well, I have always been a fan of grit and stick-to-itiveness. Anybody who's ever done anything truly remarkable in their life has got to overcome obstacles. That old saying, it's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up. And my next guest knows that very well, Ashley Harvey-Watt. She is the CEO and founder of Pillar Recruiting. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Absolutely. Well, we were visiting just before the show, and you launched your company in 2006, but this was at a difficult time in your life.
It was a challenging time. At the time we started, my kids were really little. My son was just born. I was on maternity leave, hung a shingle. But there were a lot of changes that happened after that. So it was definitely been 20 years of dedication. And not always easy. Yeah.
And I started my company in 2008, and just like within a month of me starting the company, we go into the Great Recession.
Yeah.
And you're in real estate recruiting. That had to be a really tough time.
Yeah, the real estate world was definitely, we had a good run for a couple of years, and then the market just, as you know, right, tanked after that. But I also went through a divorce during that time, and so right as I went through the divorce, the market tanked, and so the real estate industry really just stopped hiring altogether. And so we had to revamp and figure out what we were going to do on the front. And I was like, maybe I just chose the wrong industry, right? So, but we didn't. So,
well, there's obviously a lot of self-doubt that happens to all entrepreneurs when they hit a recession. I mean, even in the economy that we've been given for the last 2 years in real estate, it's been a challenging time. You go back 4 years ago, and anybody who could fog a mirror could make some money in real estate.
Yeah.
It's become a challenging environment. But what is your outlook for 2025?
I think it's going to be good. I think I feel like interest rates are an issue to some degree, right? But we don't deal with brokers. We deal with large institutional funds like Goldman Sachs, Blackstone's, Hillwood. So Hillwood's not institutional, but I think they're just waiting for the bottom of the market to fall out to see where the industry is going. But there will always be people buying real estate. So I think it's just a matter of who is the bigger giant that wins the game.
Sure. And Dallas-Fort Worth, to be honest, I mean, I can't think of a stronger market in the country than DFW.
Yeah,
so you're in the right place. We're going to pull up her website, and as we scroll down the website, let's talk about the kinds of clients that you like to work with. And they typically are larger clients.
I would say, my favorite is like mid-sized clients, right? And I say that because they're in a growth trajectory. They're more, I think, heart-based, I guess, is the other deal, right? It's almost like a passion project. I think we do a lot of institutional type work for larger firms like a Goldman, but it's just a different game to play, which we love. But I think that's just the part of it. I like to see people excel and grow, and we like being a part of it. There are several clients where we'll go into their office and we will have placed a huge majority of their staff. So I walk in and I feel like I'm part of that team, right? So that's the part that I love.
And you were telling me a story about Hillwood. You've been working with them for 19 years.
19 years. They were one of my first clients. So straight out of the gate, it was Staubach and Hillwood, and I was a part of a group that at the time I didn't know I was going to hang a shingle. And then Staubach was the first. Of course, they sold. And then Hillwood remained for 19 years. They're still a client. So,
And I know this.
I'm so impressed with the Perot's too. So,
Oh my goodness! I mean, I would love to see your phone. You and
I have Steve.
Yes, you do. But to keep these people happy, you have to do your due diligence and make sure that the person that you're placing with them is a good culture fit.
Yep.
And so, how do you go about interviewing people and deciding? You're kind of a professional matchmaker, aren't you?
Yeah, I've joked about this multiple times. I was like, sure, let's start a matchmaking business. It doesn't pay as well, and it seems too cumbersome. But it is matchmaking of sorts. And I think first you have to know your client. And I think this is why we've never been good. I know there are firms out there that will do more like order takers, right? It'd be like, hey, I need a VP of asset management. I personally have a hard time doing that without having more of a intimate relationship with the client because I don't know who you are. And so how am I supposed to get somebody that you want to work with every day if I don't know your culture, I don't know your ethics, I don't know,
Right.
your personality, right? People that you would like to hang out with.
And for example, Hillwood, 19 years, you know this client very well. You know what a good fit looks like. So when you're interviewing a candidate for the first time, you're asking questions that are going to steer you towards this person would thrive in this environment.
Yes, yeah. And also you'll know, I mean, like everything, companies have reputations, right? And so usually when we go out to recruit for like a Hillwood or any other client, we kind of know the reputation of the ethics of who they are and know where to pull from or where to start because likely they'll be hiring from the same people. So.
Yes. And I know that this is a passion of yours. It's not just a way to pay the light bill. Why do you love what you do?
So whenever I started it, so I actually had no intention of getting in recruiting at all at the time. I was hired by a woman named Mary Chetty, which I'll never forget. She was a mentor. I went to work for her when I was like 22, I think. She called me in for a second interview, and I felt so she calls me in for a second interview, and the only thing she sat down and she was like, tell me why I should hire you. And she's like, I'll give you a few minutes. And I was like, I'll take it. Great. So she walks out. She comes back, and she's like, do you have any questions for me after I answered the question? And I said, tell me why I should work for you. And so she was like, that's what got you the job. Wow. But there's the synergy of that is that there's always, but I learned a lot from her on the recruiting side. And she used to put me in the front of the office and pre-interview people before they would go in and interview so if I could interview them.
Yes.
So the passion project part of this is I've always been an entrepreneur as far as like liking to grow companies. But the passion part is everybody wins, right? Like if we can place multiple people in great careers year after year after year, it's that part, right? You're growing an organization, but you're also helping people find work, creating dream lives, right? Like
Love it.
Yeah.
Tell me what you do to prepare the candidate for the job interview, because famously the Gen Zs are labeled a texting generation instead of a talking generation. Are you having to do some work on etiquette and showing up, firm handshake, all that kind of stuff?
I think they're smarter than people give them credit. I think if you're in a professional career, I think the poor like the Gen Zers, I think get a bad rap when it comes to their professionalism. I don't think that. I think more of the prep is calming their nerves, right? Like the biggest killer in an interview is their nerves being frazzled. So I'm like, go for a walk, go for a run, work out that morning. And then just remember who you are. Play it out in your head. Visualize the actual interaction with the client, and show up confident. It's not a performance, right? It's just like getting to know somebody.
Right.
So I think that's where people get it wrong sometimes. And like you're not performing.
Yeah.
You're just trying to see if it's a match.
And we talked earlier in the interview about other firms that will just kind of try to get a warm body in a seat. But I can only imagine that, most recruiting firms are only one or two bad placements away from getting fired. So you take this very seriously. You want to make sure that you're, delivering to your clients so you can meet all their friends.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Like our goal is always to have long-term clients because we build relationships. We know their culture. It's easier to help build out structures that way. But also, if a firm has a poor reputation in the industry,
Yes.
we don't really want to place people there anyway. I don't want somebody calling me a year later and saying,
Right.
I hate it, I dislike it here, I moved my family. Because I think the part that people don't consider is you're dealing with people's lives. And so you're moving their kids, you're changing schools, you're uprooting their families sometimes when you're relocating people. So I think you have to be really conscientious. And I even tell my team, I'm like, don't take a dollar, don't place somebody if you know in your heart it's not the right move for the person or the company.
And you told me before the show that you're starting a new arm of your company, staffing. Talk about that.
So we're super excited about this part because there's a way to service the needs of organizations. So we've started out in real estate. We started working for the banking industry during the default. So we started working with servicers and receivers during that period of time. And so another way that we can serve, and this is just listening to clients, is, hey, we don't always have the bandwidth to put people on payroll, but we have budget to contract a staff or a team. So we are now starting to do staffing for short-term assignments, whether that's 6 months, we can bring in entire teams, and that will be across real estate, investment banking, and private equity. Because a lot of times private equity is they're turning teams quickly, or they're taking out their CFO and they need an interim CFO. And so now we can service that and also give those employees benefits, 401k, all that. So effectively, right, they become contract labor for Pillar, but also services the short-term needs of clients.
Okay, in the final minute or so, Ashley, if somebody's watching this saying, man, I just found my recruiting firm, they get a hold of you through the website, and then do you have some kind of Zoom meeting or face-to-face, or how does that work?
We do. I prefer always to meet people in the face-to-face. It doesn't always, we can't always, people are out of state, happy to fly there if need be, but we can do Zoom, but if you're local, would love to meet people in person. That would be my preference.
Outstanding. You've been a great guest. We're going to end with her website, which is pillarrecruiting.com. The great Ashley Harvey-Watt. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeff.
You bet. That's it for now. We'll see you next time.